What if I told you that the fastest moving, most disruptive motorcycle manufacturer in 2025 isn't Japanese, Italian, German, or even Indian? Nope, the company turning the most heads, releasing the most radical bikes, and stirring up the biggest reactions across the motorcycle world right now is CFMoto. Yeah, you're all triggered now, I get it, but I need you guys to stick with me here. We've got a lot to talk about. Those guys who used to make cheap ATVs and weird little 300cc clones are now building triples, inline fours, adventure bikes, sport bikes, and everything in between. And people are buying them. Like, a lot of people are buying them. Even the big four are starting to feel the pressure from CFMoto. In this video, we're gonna take a closer look at how CFMoto went from being sort of a broke boy meme manufacturer to a brand that's forcing the entire industry to rethink how they build and price motorcycles. Let's get into it. When we're talking about CFMoto, we have to start with their rapid glow up. Normally, it takes the dorky band geek a solid decade of weight training, creatine maxing, daily manosphere content consumption to truly evolve into an alpha Chad. But not CFMoto. They speed ran that shit. If you rewind the clock just 5 years, CFMoto's lineup was a collection of kind of awkward, underpowered bikes using warmed over Kawasaki and Honda clone engines. The 300SS was a sporty looking beginner bike with the heart of a Grom and an overzealous tech suite. The 700CLX was a weird looking retro roadster naked bike thing. It was fine enough, I guess, and certainly cheap enough, but it had a generic engine that was suspiciously similar to the Ninja 650 engine from Kawasaki. And with it came generic performance and incredibly underwhelming character. The bike just didn't come together as a greater sum of all of its parts. Then, in the blink of an eye, Stage 2 hit. CFMoto started partnering with KTM, and suddenly, their bikes weren't just good enough for a Chinese bike. They were just objectively pretty good motorcycles. The 800NK and Ibex 800 are basically KTM Duke 790 and 790 Adventure clones. Similar engines, similar chassis, just reskinned, running in slightly different states of tune, and seemingly more robust in the camshaft department, if you catch my drift. Oh yeah, and they're cheaper than the KTM counterparts as well. The 800NK will run about $1,000 less than the Scalpel. Now here we are in what I like to call Stage 3 of CFMoto's development. And in this stage, we're seeing something totally new. Original platforms, even if they're clearly inspired by a lot of familiar bikes. The 450SS was the first of the bunch. It was a cool, sporty, value-driven beginner bike using a 270-degree parallel twin. The first to come to the category. That was even before Aprilia brought that engine architecture with their much-lauded RS457. The 675SS, right behind me, is a fully fared triple that can't help but evoke memories of the esteemed Daytona 675 platform from Triumph. But beyond the displacement in the 3 cylinders, it feels very unique and novel in the middleweight category in 2025. The 500 SR Voom is a small, high-revving inline 4, built in a time when every other manufacturer is abandoning inline 4-cylinder bikes in every category, let alone the small displacement arena. And of course, as we've talked about here, the 750 SRS is the newest announcement. The 750cc inline 4 harkens back to the days of the 750 racing class. Again, a displacement in category long abandoned by everyone except for Suzuki with their GSXR 750 Heritage model, which has earned a cult status and a devout following still to this day. CFMoto's gone from derivative to daring, and that's not something you see often, especially not this fast. I really can't stress that enough. It's only been like 6 or 7 years that all of this has happened. Suzuki hasn't even built a new engine in the last 20 years. One of the most shocking things about CFMoto's rise is how fast they're cranking out new engines and entirely new platforms. The 450SS, as we discussed, is a night and day difference to the 300SS. It has a brand new engine, pretty unlike anything else in the category, and it was designed, built, and sold by the boatload in, just a few years. Then came the 765 SS just after that. Daytona fans have been begging for some sort of fully fared version of the 765 since 2017, and instead Triumph just slapped the Daytona name and some fairings on a Trident and said, that'll do. Then there's the 500 SR Voom, which is kind of a total head scratch. An inline-4 sport bike with a 16,000 RPM redline, 78 horsepower, and a lightweight chassis, and some really unique looks as well. Bikes like that just don't really exist anymore. There is no real category for such a thing, but CFMoto just did because they can. And that's kind of crazy, especially when you consider how even the Kawasaki ZX4RR was a unicorn effort that other Japanese brands wouldn't dare replicate, but CFMoto did. The 750 SRS is bringing back the 3/4 liter bike in a world where most companies are busy neutering or axing everything for Euro 5 compliance. While everyone else is scaling back, CFMoto is scaling up. The sheer velocity of their development cycle is something we haven't seen since the golden age of Japanese sport bikes in the 90s. Every Japanese OEM is milking R&D from like 10 to 20 years ago. We of course know Suzuki's track record as being slow to innovate, but even Honda has been reusing and recycling engines for a decade, and even Yamaha's CP2, 3, and 4 engines, while being really frickin' sweet and very cutting edge for the time, are starting to feel a bit like old news. But CFMoto is releasing new exciting things seemingly every 6 months. Now I know what some of you are thinking. I've read the comments before, and the elephant in the room is, aren't these just Chinese knockoff bikes? And yeah, that reputation exists for a reason. There are tons of no-name Chinese brands that sell bike-in-a-box specials online that fall apart before their first oil change. But CFMoto really isn't that. They're not some boom Venom BD250.
Oh my god, this thing is a cheap piece of crap.
They've been building off-road vehicles since the 80s. They've had KTM's official manufacturing partnership for years, and they've even produced some KTM motorcycles for global distribution. That's a level of OEM integration and quality assurance that no other Chinese bike brand can claim, at least for now. Even QJ Motors, who we talked about on this channel, the company behind Benelli and a growing lineup of their own, doesn't operate on that same level. QJ is still very much in the era of selling cheap bikes based heavily on stolen IP and that end up as weird hodgepodge and mismatched clone parts and designs. CFMoto is building full original motorcycles with dealer support, 2-year warranty, and parts availability in the US. They're not just shipping a crate in your driveway to assemble with an IKEA tool set. Here's where CFMoto really gets it. They understand the new rider in 2025. They're not trying to sell 22-year-olds a $20,000 superbike. They're not trying to make their bikes for club racing or world superbike homologation or for track dads with too much money. They're building bikes for broke squids who want something fast, flashy, and affordable to ride on with their buddies, which is fine. Racing programs do a lot to push R&D, and all sorts of motorcycles, even beyond sport bikes, have become better as a result of factory racing programs. But building and selling race-derived motorcycles is sort of an antiquated model. And look, it hurts me to say that as a guy who loves racing and track days and going fast and all that cool stuff. But those bikes are expensive, impractical, and kind of homogenous in many ways because that's what happens when you go racing. And let's be real, a lot of young riders do not care about racing heritage or brand legacy in that way. They want a bike that looks good, sounds cool, has some tech, and costs less than a used car. CFMoto delivers that better than anyone else right now. Look at their color schemes, the aggressive styling, the full digital TFTs across even their smallest bikes, and that cool little startup light sequence that the lights do. It's all laser targeted at Gen Z. Meanwhile, Japanese brands are still pumping out the same designs from 10 years ago, expecting loyalty that newer riders just don't have. Suzuki still put a calculator screen on the new 2026 GSX-R 1000 when they really had no excuse to do so. And I don't think this is by accident. This disruption is deliberate. CFMoto's ditching the industry playbook. No slow, decade-long model refresh cycle, no focusing on power classes just to slot into racing categories, no absurd MSRP markups to protect the brand's premium image, no hubris that says, this engine won XYZ total races in the last 20 years, it's perfect, why change it, people will buy this thing forever. Instead, they're asking, what do these new customers want? And then they just build that thing. That's a radically different approach from legacy manufacturers who are often more concerned with brand identity and historical continuity than innovation. They're not building motorcycles for the company's heritage or philosophy of the brand. They're building them for real-world riders right now, and that's why it's working. Now look, you may think that this is just some CFMoto paid puff piece, but we're simply reporting on what's happening in the motorcycling world. Of course, not everyone's on board. The breakneck pace at which CFMoto is releasing their bikes has a lot of riders kind of shook. Traditional manufacturers like Suzuki can keep the same GSXR engine platform going for 20 years and nobody's gonna bat an eye. But when CFMoto releases 3 brand new engines in 2 years, suddenly it's too fast, probably unreliable, or just vaporware. So it begs the question, can you trust these motorcycles? And that is a valid concern. When a company moves this quickly, it raises fears about quality control, long-term reliability, and parts availability. But so far, the data suggests that CFMoto's doing pretty good. Their partnership with KTM means that their manufacturing processes are beyond what your preconceptions might lead you to believe about Chinese motorcycles. I mean, look, they might not be Honda right now, but they're on the right track. And these aren't just the opinions of a guy on YouTube. The proof is in the pudding. The market has responded. I'm seeing more and more of these bikes basically everywhere. So you don't believe me? Let's talk numbers. CFMoto grew by over 25% year over year in 2023, and their global presence is exploding. According to motorcyclesdata.com, they're one of the fastest growing motorcycle brands in the world, and that's before the full impact of this bike, the 500 Voom, or the 750 SRS hits. Their dealer network in the US has grown steadily. In fact, they now have hundreds of authorized dealers nationwide, and their bikes come with a 2-year warranty, which is more than some Japanese brands. And if you head to the CFMoto Reddit forum right now, you'll find post after post from owners racking up miles with few, if any, major issues. The community seems surprisingly happy and positive. Even if you never ride a CFMoto, which I completely understand, you'll still feel their influence. Look at Honda's new CB750 Hornet and CB Hornet 1000 SP, both of which are priced way below what you'd expect for their class. That's not Honda just being generous, that's competition pressure. The Japanese Big Four are reacting, and the reason is clear. If they don't adjust, CFMoto's gonna eat their lunch. CFMoto has been the company bold enough to challenge the norm and say, what if we built a bike but didn't try to sell it for as much as we possibly could? Brands like Royal Enfield have proven that if you sell cool bikes at cheap prices with some degree of reliability and success, customers will flock. As a direct result of their successes, even companies like Aprilia and Triumph, who have previously neglected entry-level segments, have started to invest in cheaper beginner bikes, and they've seen record-breaking sales as a result. Do you really think that Triumph didn't look at Royal Enfield when they made the new Speed 400s? Do you really think that Aprilia's not thinking about CFMoto when they built the RS 457? Come on. But when those riders want to upgrade from, say, a Scrambler 400 or an RS 457 to something more serious, CFMoto's suddenly standing right there, ready to sell them a 675cc 3-cylinder sport bike for less than $8,000. No other company is making that kind of upgrade path that affordable, this flashy, or this fun. CFMoto isn't just filling the gaps, they're redefining them. So, where does all of this go? Is the skepticism around Chinese bikes still valid, or is it becoming outdated? It's hard to say. There's an enduring perception that Chinese bikes are cheap, poorly made, and only competitive because of government subsidies. And yeah, some of that is still true, but how different is that from other global manufacturers? Polestar, Volvo, Buick, they build cars in China. BMW, Tesla, Toyota, and VW all have manufacturing facilities in China too. The future of motorcycles might look a lot like the future of cars, a global supply chain where Chinese manufacturing becomes far more normalized. I think we're gonna have to get used to this whole frenemy relationship we have with China. We kind of have a mutually assured success with the giant country. I think the KTM and CFMoto partnership is indicative of other global brand collaborations that will come. What if we see BMW, Triumph, or even Yamaha outsourcing production to China in the coming years? And when that happens, companies like CFMoto won't be the outliers, but they'll be the blueprint. I mean, consider what Honda's done by moving a bunch of their production facilities to Thailand. Think about how Ducati assembles some of their scrambler bikes offshore from Italy. This isn't anything new. Whether you love them or hate them, CFMoto is here, and they're changing the game, and we cannot ignore these bikes anymore. They're building cool bikes for a new generation of real-world riders. They're releasing new platforms at speeds we haven't seen in decades, and they're pushing the competition to step up and offer better value across the board. And personally, I think that's cool for motorcycling in general. If you never ride a CFMoto, guess what? Your Honda is now cheaper because they exist. Competition is a good thing. If you're a new rider, this is the best time to get into the sport, and these legacy brands should probably start paying a little bit of attention. CFMoto is no longer the brand you laugh at on Alibaba. They're becoming the preferred manufacturer of Gen Z street squids everywhere, and they're the company that your favorite manufacturer might have to answer to next year. Don't ignore them, because whether you ride one or not, the future of motorcycling just got a lot more interesting. Thanks for making it to the end of the video today. I'd ask you what you think, but with a topic like this, I am sure you've already made up your mind and your opinions loud and clear in the comments. Thanks so much for checking out today's video, guys. I really do appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.